Um, so my brother asked me to officiate, and not that an experience or but I didn't know how. But I knew this was my father was on, so here I am. Bear with me. I also knew we were going to save the $50 ally. So, yeah, I'll try to do great.
Speak more slowly. More slowly.
Speak more slowly.
Yeah,
Good.
clearly.
Yeah, she is supposed to be talking.
Maybe move the
So-
feet for mommy.
My father recently, in his later years, he had studied Tanya. And one day he said, I think I can sum up Tanya with one word. And the word he chose was gratitude. So gratitude sums up everything in that book. And I don't know if I'll be able to give eulogy, but I would just like to express my gratitude to my father and my mother for the home that they raised us in, and for giving me the wonderful siblings that I have, and the wonderful, youth that I had growing up in this wonderful, wonderful community, which I'm very proud to have grown up in. And as long as I've expressed that gratitude, I believe, God might be across. But like that's my brother to say a few words.
I don't have much experience speaking either.
You do better now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have much experience speaking either. But I wanted to do my best to my father. I'll say a few things that have always impressed me about him. One thing was his consistency. He was as a Jew, is always coming to communion as much as he could. Remember, even when I was very young in Patchogue, one of my early memories was that he had a dilemma when he should go to shul on Friday night. Sometimes they had trouble getting a minyan and they would be arguing about whether or not it was too late to call somebody else to come or not. But I was pretty young when that happened, and even then, he was very consistent about that. And even very recently, when it's very hard for him to walk, to get to shul, he pushed himself to come and daven with the minyan. Another area he was very consistent with was learning Torah, studying. Again, early memories. I remember he had this Hebrew English paperback Gemara that was like the early 1960s. We moved out of there probably in 65. So it must have been before that he would be learning, had a lunch and learn shiur that he would go to at work. I think that's where it was. Somebody from his work he would learn with. This was over lunch, I'm not sure 100%. And again, even when he couldn't get out of the house, still he went to a Tanya shiur with Chabad over Zoom, and learning was something that was very important to him. And towards the end of his life, he decided he wanted to write something up. I'm sure other people will speak about it also. There's a 22-page document he typed up. He worked a lot of time on it. And basically, as my brother said, the whole idea of it was was gratitude. That a person, one of the most important things a person can have is gratitude. And I'd just like to say over some thought from him to share it with everybody else. And this was that he was reading this, he would study science and try to see how we can learn what to be grateful for from science. And being very brilliant, he studied, for example, the proton pumps that are in each cell and how they work to provide energy with the ATP, with the ADP, etc. I tried following a online video about it, and I got a little bit lost in the middle. But he read through this, and he tells me that you have all over your body, every single cell, so many of these proton pumps producing the energy. That's how your body works. And that we have, this is something that you can't explain through natural science. It wasn't just some natural scientific process that created the world, but it had to have been Hashem. It had to have been miraculous. It couldn't have happened through such a process. And therefore, once we realize that, then we should feel our gratitude towards Hashem for all these different things, and look around the world and see everything and be grateful. And thank Hashem for that. And then you'll come to love Hashem and serve Hashem. My father was very modest. He had his PhD from Harvard University. But he never called himself, he never, I think, cum laude, but he never called himself Dr. Shotkin. Unless we called him that, we would put that like on our wedding invitations or something to show off, but that wasn't what him. And another area was his honesty, that and he didn't want to be beholden to anybody. He wanted to take care of his obligations, and even those financial obligations, maybe somebody tries to weasel out of. He would, for example, I think the reason why he had such a wonderful family might have been because he was always careful, as far as I know. My mom could tell me if I'm wrong, whatever, later on, but I think he was always careful to pay full tuition in the school. There are many areas where they try to live very modestly. You go into the house and you'll see these things that were jerry-rigged to, rather than getting something new, you just take a wire or something and fix it up and it'll work. Or maybe they'll put new lights in the living room. They don't have to match the old lights, so it looks a little bit off. But didn't want to waste money. But when it came to for what those things that he was obligated for, he didn't try to get out of them at all. And I haven't gone over his checkbook, but that's my feeling, that I think that's from my scene, I think that's true. And he was very, so then at the end, I think I messed him up a little bit on that. When I went away to yeshiva, I told him you can get these student loans and not loans, student scholarships or something, and he didn't want to do that, but I sort of, everybody else in the yeshiva did it. I thought you should do it, you shouldn't waste money. But that wasn't his way, but I think I maybe got him out of that, for me at least, a little bit, but that wasn't the way that he wanted to do it. And Baruch Hashem, he was blessed. He had his mind to the very end, and not yesterday, but last Shabbos, he was playing Wingspan still, which is a thinking game. Maybe Shlomo won, I forget who won. And he went to the hospital and they told him that this was on Friday. They told him it was not 2 days ago. He doesn't have much more time. They're going to send him home for hospice. So they asked him if he has any questions. He says, that, yeah, he'd like to know more about this hospital. But they have a brochure of the history of the hospital, so you can read it. I don't know if he had a chance to or not. He was a little bit optimistic about how much time he had left, because after that, his mind did go. But I think Harriet had to renew his license for him or something last week or something. Because, you know, he didn't want it to expire. But anyway, I like to conclude just by thanking everyone who helped out. I'm not going to say something. I think that my sister Sharona is actually going to go over the people. You know, so I'll leave that to her to say. And I would just say one thing that we found that might be of interest to the people here. We went to the MedStar Hospital emergency room. We got that was the best care we've ever had. And anything we needed, they were right there all the time with such compassion. And that's an amazing hospital from our experience. And I think I'll leave it at that, and there are more people at the speakers.
I want to call on my sister to say a few words. My brother mentioned my father's simplicity in the way he led his life. I still remember coming on Friday night from the Showman's. And I don't know how we got in this conversation, but I said to my father, you know, my dream when I grew up, I want to have a Porsche and a Mercedes. That was my dream. And he looked at me, he said, that's your desire? He goes, you know what my real title is, my real desire is? He goes, I always wanted a manicured front lawn. Beautiful manicured front lawn. And he's saying this to me as we're walking up to the house. And I remember as kids, we were embarrassed of our lawn. My father used to use a manual lawnmower and a manual hedge trimmer. And it did the trick basically, but that was about it. So we wouldn't get, you know, called from the neighbors, so we didn't get complaints, but that was about the level that the lawn was. And I took a lesson from that really what's important to life is family, what was important to him. He was not his desires, what was important to him was us and his love he had for us. We're very grateful. Sean, I'd like you to share some words.
Right. First of all, Micha is gonna give the thank yous, so don't hold your breath waiting for me to say thank yous. I have a prepared thing I wanted to say, but a few things that David reminded me of that at the theme of gratitude was so important to our father, and his last birthday, which was a year ago. He put a lot of effort into a gratitude speech that he prepared for the family. And he was saying, is this better? No, okay. And he was saying, Hodu Lashem Kitov, Kivil Olam Hatzon. That was the refrain. And he went through many things in his life, in our lives, that he was very grateful for. And some of the things were very unfortunate, you know, difficulties and challenges that we had in life. And he showed how in the end, it was all for the best and good things came out of bad things that happened. I think this will be the most emotional part for me, hopefully, when they get through it. Take my water bottle. Okay. I live in Israel, and when the war started, it was a big shock and a big, difficulty and a big, crisis in many ways, and in many ripples, and it was, a big challenge for me. And I went back and I listened to my father's gratitude speech because I knew that would give me perspective of understanding how something bad, but it's like the cycle of history, and there are difficulties, but then in the end, it's Hashem's plan is all for the best, and positive things come out of it. And I found it really reassuring to go back and listen to him and how he interpreted life from the perspective of his 91 years. And I also wanted to say that what Doug touched on was my father had two sayings that really spoke to him from Pirkei Avot. One was Lo alecha hamlacha legmor, v'lo ata ben chorin libatel mimena, that you have to be a participant in life and you can't shirk your responsibilities. That was one thing he really lives by. And the other one was Ezu Ashir Hasamech B'chalko, who was a rich man, who he was happy with what he has. And that was what my father really lived by. It didn't take much to keep my father content. And as a result, he went through life as a very rich man, happy with his lot, very appreciative of all he had. He delighted in the little things. He could find fun and excitement in the mundane. And that was what I think my children, all of us really appreciated of him. He would just get excited from every little thing. He was a man of routine and order. He always kept to a schedule and was always ready early for any and everything. He was always waiting by the door first for everyone else to fall in place. Even after retirement, his day had a definite rhythm to it, with many daily activities scheduled every day. Even up to the end at the hospital, he was aware of everything, and he was reiterating what we needed to do and making sure we didn't leave anything behind upon discharge. Until the very end, he was keeping track of everything. In fact, that appointment that Harriet had to go to on Friday, the day before he died, on the way home from the hospital, he says, didn't we have an appointment at the DMV today that we had to go to? Somehow he had everything in his mind, and he kept all the balls juggling in the air until the very end. He was really on top of everything. Along with all the routine, he would also introduce new things to keep life interesting. A new topic to research, a new game to learn, like Wingspan, like others said, a super complicated game that a lot of us could barely learn how to play. A new song to introduce at the Shabbat table. In the years since COVID, when he and my mother would spend the Pesach Seder by themselves, each Seder he would choose a topic that he would research beforehand, and that would be the focus of the Seder. So 2 years ago, it was Eliyahu Hanavi. He ordered a book about it, and he learned many interesting facets of Eliyahu Hanavi. And he wrote up a whole a thesis about Eliyahu Hanavi. In fact, my son in Israel asked me today if I could send him that. He said he's going to learn that thing that Grandpa wrote about Eliyahu Hanavi in his school today. There were many beautiful traditions that my father had around the Shabbos table. He would read Eshet Chayil to our mother in English every Friday night. And he had a meaningful song he would sing before Shabbat lunch, Chai Hashem Ohav Tzuri, which I haven't heard many other people sing that at their Shabbos table. And after Rivka, who's here, had her accident, he took it very, very to heart, and he added a new song Friday night, Ana B'Koach, which gave him strength and hope and resilience. He said that one of the words in there was Chosem Chasim Kadosh, and he wanted the resilience. And the last time when I came about a month ago, in May, I was here. And he had introduced a new song about unity, which was a big topic of his towards the end of his life that he researched. In fact, music was a big part of his life. He loved classical music and Shostakovich. Another thing at the Shabbos table when we were growing up, he was not the one to say Motzi at the table. He would choose one of us every week, and he would say, you know, you get the honor today to say it because you did this week, and I'm gonna recognize your accomplishments and give you this special honor. And in fact, even till this last Shabbat, yesterday, he chose Yaakov, his nephew, to say he kept repeating, I want Yaakov to be the one to say the Kiddush and the Hamotzi. I'm not gonna be able to do it, and I want Yaakov to do it because he had a very special connection with Yaakov, who was there at the end and was really incredible source of physical and emotional help to all of us at the end. Our father was always challenging himself to learn new things, but to him it wasn't a challenge. He enjoyed exercising his brain cells, and in fact, he was, like my brother said, completely lucid and brilliant until the end. He was always at his computer researching some highly intellectual topics such as human cells. And the most recent thesis he spent many hours developing. And he was so enthusiastic about it. And then we found this on the table today. I mean, he had spoken to us about it, but we went up to his desk, and this is like just when he wrote this in June. And it has, there's diagrams, and it's just like an incredible thing. It's labeled Understanding Tanya Using Contemporary Science. And other things, when I looked on his computer today, he had written about gratitude for how cells receive energy to keep us alive, understanding how spiritual and scientific understanding of Hashem, understanding evolution, and these were things he would just work on one thing until he completed it, and then he would pick another topic. And he was very enthusiastic about this last one when he studied with Rabbi Bovovsky, Tanya. He really connected to the Tanya, and it had a big impression and it changed a lot in his way of thinking. He was very modest. He lived a simple and basic life. He needed no luxuries, and he lived frugally. But even more than that, he was a very humble person. Although much respect was due to him, he never expected it. Instead, he downplayed his achievements. One time, my grandmother, his mother, pulled me aside and said, I just want you to know your father is a very important man. He represents the United States of America around the world, his various business trips, and she was so proud of him. He had, as my brother mentioned, he had a PhD in physics from Harvard, and although he was not an aggressive go-getter at all, just by sheer force of his brains and talent, and most of all, I would say his work ethic, he reached high levels in his professional life. He was a respected head of his department and published many articles on a very high scientific level. He was quoted by other scientists. He made his mark in the world of nuclear power safety regulations. But despite his professional accomplishments, the focus of his life was his family. Growing up, we had many family activities together: bike riding, camping, hiking to the dam on Shabbat, boating in Lake Needwood. Like I said, we would go camping in the summer. One summer we rented a caravan in New Mexico because our father was working in Los Alamos, New Mexico for about a month. And every year on my father's birthday, we held an annual bowling tournament, and he had a trophy, and he would engrave the winner's name, and then the winner could take the trophy home for the year. Usually my father won, but as he got older, some of the children and grandchildren started winning. And along with all of these family activities, our parents gave us incredible independence to develop in whichever way we chose, while skillfully guiding us to success. As soon as he possibly could, our father retired and encouraged our mother to do the same so they could have time to do the things they enjoyed together. These included lots of exercise, walking all the way from Kent Mill to Wheaton, working out at the gym, researching the topics, as I mentioned, but most of all, time with children and grandchildren. My parents visit us often in Israel, and through their prolonged stays, they developed a close relationship with my children. My father liked to sit and observe the children play. He had incredible patience and really enjoyed watching the interactions. He would enthusiastically play board games or whatever else the grandchildren requested. He would go with their flow without trying to influence the flow of the activity. And by observing, he really got to know them and their personalities and was genuinely interested in what was going on in their lives. And I'll add that my husband mentioned that he also had a close relationship with daughters-in-laws and sons-in-laws, and he would go, when we were together, he would go to Mincha with my husband, and they would always learn between Mincha and Mara, because my father didn't want to waste any time. And my husband really enjoyed the insights that my father had, and we always have something to add. Let's see. Okay, but Mom, the most important thing in his life was my mother, his wife. I think he kept pinching himself his whole life. He couldn't believe he got so lucky to hit the jackpot when my mother agreed to marry him. He thought the world of her in every way and was so proud of who she was and appreciative of all she did for him. On his 88th birthday, I asked him to describe his life in one word, and he was sharp and witty, and he said, right, his quick answer was, I'll describe my life in one word, long. And recently he said to me, as I get older, circumstances change, and I change what answers I've given you in the past or decisions I've made. And I said, okay, but one thing you told me, that has to still be true answer. When I asked you to describe your life in one word, it has to be long. I mean, it's even longer now. He said, no, I'm changing the answer to that question. I want to describe my life in one word. It's Jane, my wife. She is my whole life. And she really was his whole life, especially as his health waned. She was so respectful and caring and patient with him, always, but especially as he became totally dependent on her, and it was beautiful to see. The relationship between my parents was symbiotic. It was the two of them against the world. They have been completely independent into ripe old age, and together made every decision on things big and small. In fact, yesterday, we had like a little crisis toward the end of my father's life, and we were deciding how to handle it. And my mother, we had to make a phone call on Shabbat, and she was going to the phone, and she said, something's bothering me. I'm thinking, I had to consult. I'm thinking, wait, I didn't consult with Dad. I didn't ask him, for his input here, because we never made a decision on our own before. Now it was like she had to make the decision without him for the first time. And but I think you do a good job, Mom. You know how to do it on your own. But they had lots of mutual respect and lots of admiration and love, and they were an island unto themselves. It's hard to imagine one without the other. In fact, their last anniversary, I called them up and I said, it was April, right, when my father was starting to decline, and they really could do anything, but they still could actually. And they said, I said, are you doing anything for your anniversary? Thinking, what are they going to do? They don't need the help. And they said, yeah, we have big plans. We spent the whole morning. decided we're gonna go to the Chinese store and we're gonna order the entree, the appetizers, which my mother never let my father eat because they had too much salt. And they spent the whole morning looking at the menu and picking out what they would order. And then they said, we're gonna save that for supper. We're gonna go to the pizza store, buy a slice of pizza to share. Then we're gonna go to Sweet Frog to get the ice cream. And that was like their big day they planned. And then my father said, the only problem is we are so worn out from all the planning. I don't know if we're gonna have the energy to actually do it. But that was them, you know, again, enjoying the little things in life. So in conclusion, my father was a great man, and aside from his professional mark he left in this world, he left a huge legacy on the line. He lives on within each of his children, grandchildren, and even his great grandchildren. And we cherish the memories we had of his very long life. And I'll say, Lech b'shalom, Tanoch b'shalom, Yehi zichro baruch.
My father's main joy in life was definitely his grandchildren and his children and grandchildren, from which he took such nachas. And I would ask my son Nassim to say a few words. Be prepared.
So I'm listening to these Hespedim. I'm listening to these Hespedim and I'm thinking everyone's taking my content. Word for word. What a crystal clear legacy to leave behind. Grandpa was an unassuming man, but an intellectual giant. His great loves in life were us as family, grandma, and learning. He was a lifelong learner up until the very end. As Uncle Devin mentioned, when he was being discharged from the hospital on Friday, he asked if there was a brochure on the history of the hospital. When the nurse replied in the negative, he simply shrugged and said, "No problem, I'll look it up online." A lifelong thirst for knowledge up until the very end. Indeed, when his heart, kidneys, and other organs were failing, his brain remained perfectly lucid and intact. He didn't care for prestige or luxury and never lived beyond his means. In fact, he lived well within it. Like a time capsule from a different era, Grandpa cared little for externals. Big flashy things didn't impress him. What was real, happiness, fulfillment, and accomplishment meant everything. He had a charming joy for small pleasures, like a bowl of ice cream with extra whipped cream. I remember he would on tape recorder, he would send these recordings to my father when he was in yeshiva. And he would just let it record as he was doing mundane things. One time he cut off his train of thought and made this slurping sound like he was eating some whipped cream from a bowl of ice cream. He had a remarkable consistency and a fierce independence. For decades, he davened at the same Shacharis minyan and the same Mincha Marav minyan, even coming with his walker at the age of 91. He spent his later days filled with gratitude for Grandma, the family they built together, and the full, rich life that they shared together. On the last Shabbos that I spent with him, Grandpa shared this write-up on Tanya that everyone's mentioned, linking spirituality to advanced molecular biology. He told me, which was uncharacteristic of him, he told me that he was very proud of this work. I want to end by reading an excerpt from this write-up. Omnipresence of Hashem. The consequence of continuous recreation of life in ways that are hidden from us allows Tanya to argue that this is an indication of the unity of life, that there is no existence outside of Hashem, and within Hashem, all his attributes are unified. In Parshas Truma, Hashem says, "Let me build a sanctuary so I may dwell in them, not that I may dwell in it." Hashem lives within each one of us. In the words of the Tanya, Hashem is both within us, mimala, and around us, saviv. Hashem's oneness is at once both easy and difficult to incorporate into human understanding. We can accept this as a general principle on an intellectual level, but may have difficulty incorporating it into our emotional life. Hashem is omnipresent. Even though we are part of Hashem, it is still appropriate to feel gratitude towards Hashem. Tanya says that we can control our emotions through meditation about and feeling gratitude for Hashem's greatness and majesty. Intellectual meditation leads to emotional attachment. Thinking about Hashem allows one to experience his presence within us and around us. Our natural consciousness explains a world without Hashem, but through meditation, it is possible to bring Hashem into our consciousness and to both love and respect him. A powerful tool to improve self-control is using our soul's intellectual power to focus our thoughts on what we know of Hashem's interaction with his world and with each of us. If you think about Hashem, you will feel and experience Hashem.
Along with what Shimona was saying, that my father's main joy in life was the children and grandchildren. I know he wanted to speak. If he was speaking now, he would speak about every single child, every single grandchild, and all the joy in every single one of them. I remember when I was ending high school, I was looking at career options, wherever, with college, what I could do with my life. And as a child, you're thinking about, well, where can I make the most money? What's gonna be the best profession? And then at a certain point, it dawned on me, I said, wait a minute, if I had a PhD from Harvard, I'd make reams of cash, I wouldn't be working for the government. And this was my epiphany as a teenager, and I came to my father and I said to him, why didn't you ever work in private industry? You could have gotten a job at 3M, you could have done really well for yourself. And then I said, it was at the height of the nuclear race when during the Cold War. I said, why didn't you work on developing the bomb? You could have done a lot of stuff there. And he very quickly answered. He said to me that the only thing that matters is family. And he wanted a job that he went in at 9 and then he came home at 5, and then he didn't have to think about it after that, because he wanted his focus in life was never money. It was all the children, the grandchildren, and the tremendous knowledge he got from every single one of you. And now my dad, I'd like to call on my son Yaakov, the youngest speaker today, if you will.
I'd like to start off saying, I never spoke before. Grandpa was the only grandfather I ever had. I only got to spend 15 years with him. But I only went to his house once or twice a year. But through all this, I carried the little memories that I made along the way. From when we would go to the butterfly sanctuary, and we would want to sit in his lap and watch the birds. Eat from the bird feeder. I mean, he was more than a grandfather. He was my only grandfather, my hero. It was only a few years ago, he would cradle me in his arms. And I found comfort with his touch. In the last week, when I came and didn't do the same, for 15 years, he was there for me when I needed it. And the last week when I went, I had to carry him out of bed. And my father had said, you don't look comfortable. And he said, what can I do? But he always had a smile on his face. And during Shabbos, we spent hours talking, and he kept on expressing the power of patience. Grandpa, your patience was a gift. Your calming presence, and always willing to listen and offer guidance. Whenever I questioned about anything, you were there to answer. And if you didn't know the answer, you would sit with me and figure it out. You taught me that wisdom comes from understanding, and understanding comes from patience. And the thirst for knowledge was contagious. You showed me that learning is a lifelong journey, and curiosity is a virtue. You inspired us to ask questions and seek answers, and explore the world around us. Well, that was the whole thing. Oh, there's one more page. I'll cherish the moments we spent together, from the quiet conversations to the lively debates. Your love for learning sparked a fire within me, and I'll carry that flame forward. As we say goodbye, we take comfort in knowing that your legacy will live on through our family. Your patience, wisdom, and love for knowledge will continue to guide us. Rest in peace, Grandpa. Your impact will never fade. Your thirst for knowledge can be quenched in the infinite wisdom of the universe. That's it.
Like Tom Dennis. Didn't say a few words. Can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I feel very grateful to be part of this family. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever done in my whole life. One thing I've always understood from Grandpa, is that he was a sword that was worth 1,000 blades. He always put us forward first instead of himself. He always strove for knowledge, like everybody has said. He always tried learning new things, trying to develop new things for other people. He always tried his best to understand others, even before himself, which was an amazing feat that he had accomplished over and over again. He always has been something of inspiration to me, something that I always tried to develop in my own self and strive for. There was a story that he, funny enough, said that he never had done it himself, which was clearly to help me understand what it meant to be a person of empathy and sympathy. I would always talk with people, just random strangers, all the time on the subway, or even in front of my family members, and they always were like, "Why are you talking with them?" I'm like, "Well, it looks like they had a bad day, or maybe they were struggling with something that they couldn't understand or understand themselves," and I like to help boost their confidence while helping them have a better day. Well, I maybe not have had the best day, or even something along those lines. And he looked at me and he said, "Danny, why do you speak to those people? You don't even know them." And I told him, well, maybe they were having a bad day. And that's the only words I said to him. And he said to me, "That is something that you should always continue doing. Never stop," is what he said to me. And I always looked at him and I was confused, like everybody says, don't speak to people like that. You might offend them, you might upset them. And every time I did, I never saw malice or anger in their faces. They always looked at me with respect and gratitude for speaking with them. And that's something that he has always done, but I never really noticed because he was older. I never heard from him in his life, and I started to ask those questions a lot from him. What was your life? What did you do when you were, a lot older? When you were younger? I asked him all these questions. How did he meet Grandma? And that was the most beautiful story I've ever heard, was him meeting Grandma. And when you look at those accomplishments, he did those things because he wanted me to try to strive to be better than my former self. And that's something that I always look for now in what I learned today. My father was a man who strived for knowledge, not for the self gain, but for the gain of helping other people. With that work that my aunt is holding, Dota Sharana, it proves to show that he only wanted to strive to help others, not himself. He had a soul worth of 1,000 blades that was forged to help other people. And I believe that that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. I never thought anything other than him, other than a beautiful soul.
He was one of the most impressive people I've ever met. He was a nuclear physicist, like my uncle said, but he never really worked on those things for his whole life. He wanted to settle down and decide a 9 to 5 was more important than money. Money only gives you sadness sometimes, not always happiness. Happiness thrives within the families of bonding and relationships within those families. He's not the type of individual that is, the most, empathic person with words, but with his actions, he always strove to be better. He always proved that again and again. And he became something what is an amazing man. And he lived to 90 years old to prove it. His brain might not have shut down, his body might have, but he always will be something that I will strive to become. It's a beautiful thing to see. Thank you.
Now, this is unusual, but I just wanted, as I was listening to everybody else, I wanted to add one more thing. My father lived a long life, and Misal Salanta says it takes a whole life to change a mida, to improve a mida, a character trait. And I'm thinking to myself as I hear people speaking, that some of the things, that the strengths that they said that my father had, that they were weaknesses of his when he was younger, and that he worked on them and turned them into strengths. And I think that that is something that I'm just thinking about it. I'm just amazed. I just wanted to say that one thing. Easy, robo.
In conclusion, there are just a lot of people we want to thank. Over the years, has been very, very helpful. We'd like to thank the community at large, who's been just a tremendous place for my parents to live over the past, how many years? Almost 50 years.
Oh.
And I want to thank Harriet and Ronnie Scheinson. Harriet was like a friend, more than a friend of the family, and the connections go back many generations. Miriam and Steve Friedman and family who've been in constant support since we arrived in Kentnell, for frequent visits, running errands, providing holiday gifts, goodies, basically anything that was needed, they were always there for us. We're very thankful. I wanted to thank Ronnie and Rebecca Barrett for providing friendship and humor and great magic shows whenever the family got together. Thank you. And I want to thank Jeff Schneider, who would always bring a newspaper for my parents every morning. That was very much appreciated. They really enjoyed that. We want to thank all the neighbors who would come over to assist my father at the end when he would fall. We had a lot of people come over and really help us when we needed it. I think my brother already thanks the hospital, but Dr. Schneider and Dr. Schindler, who we had the support for all over the years. I want to thank Valsby from Chabad. The opening of your show was at the perfect time for my father to be able to remain going to show. We really, really appreciate it, not only as a show, as a place to value, but as a place to learn and grow. And what he gave for you was he was very, very grateful. And we as a family are also very thankful for all that you've done for us. I want to thank the Rabbi Rosendahl for coming over last night and giving us such support and for always being there for the family. I want to thank Menashe Katz and the Chevy Kadisha for all their help, and Menashe for the Zoom today. Different Menashe Katz, don't get confused. And we want to thank all the grandchildren for their love and support, and particularly Yaakov, who came this past week. My nephew, he shares the same birthday as my father, and the connection that they had together ran very, very deep. And he was always there, perhaps by chance, but perhaps that's the way Hashem wanted. He was always there when my father had medical needs, and always was there at the time of crisis to really help him, both support physically and emotionally. I also want to thank Sean family in Israel to be arriving soon, and they will come to be with my mother over the next month or so. And it says here, finally, our children and children-in-law will work together to see if they can continue to support appropriately. I want to thank, I'll add to the list, my mother, for the tremendous care that she gave Dad over the years, you did fantastic. You did exactly what Dad would want, and you took care that he should have everything that he needed to be as comfortable as he could possibly be. And you gave him the life that he wanted to live, and we're very grateful to you for that. And if the grandchildren come forward to you, the full Mary Snow, after these gone. Amolera Andim, Shotkin, Amilon, 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 Kande Ashiro, Malo Shiro, Lady Motion, then Abishwal, Jalon, November, Sharon Salina, Tradish, Master, the end of our yes, we say something about the opening. If it's our time is nicht was so, and I don't know, so the official Mishka, Amen.